The air tasted of rust and failure. Owen adjusted the cheap rebreather mask, the seal chafing his cheek as he slipped through the emergency override hatch into the Lowell Arcology. Warning strobes cast long, stuttering shadows across the entrance, their rhythm a frantic, ignored heartbeat in the cavernous silence. This place, once the crown jewel of Gale Haven, a city dedicated to creating life on a dead world, was now its grandest tomb. He crunched across a floor that was no longer polished composite, but a gritty carpet of red Martian dust, blown in through a gaping wound in the dome ceiling. Through it, the true hostile sky of Mars glared down, a bruised purple where it should have been a brilliant, engineered blue. Before him, filling the center of the derelict paradise, was the reason he'd come: the heartwood. Even in death it was magnificent, a genetically engineered marvel as wide as a city block, its skeletal branches clawed at the geodesic sky. He remembered standing here as a boy, holding the hand of his mentor, a grizzled old gray zone tech named Fen. Fen had pointed up at the canopy of vibrant green, shimmering with programmed bioluminescence. "It's more than a plant, Owen," Fen had whispered, his voice full of reverence. "It's the heart of this place. It knows." Now its bark was cracked and gray, the lights almost all extinguished. Only in the deepest crevices of its massive trunk did a faint, sickly blue pulse remain, like the last embers of a forgotten fire. The methane crisis had starved it. When the tankers from Titan stopped coming, the Arcology's life-sustaining systems were the first luxury to be sacrificed. The perfect sunlight flickered and died, the waterfalls ran dry, the air thinned. The elite, the product scientists and agrigen executives who had strolled these paths, had fled to more stable sectors, leaving their dream to wither. People like Owen, who lived in the gray zones below and whose job it was to maintain the paradise, were left to watch it die. The official story was simple: a tragic, predictable systems failure, starvation. But Owen, remembering Fen's words, never believed it was that simple. The collapse had been too fast, too total. He knelt at the tree's base, his fingers tracing the contours of an almost invisible access panel among the gnarled roots. This wasn't just a pilgrimage. He pulled a battered data pad and a custom-made interface cable from his pack. Saving the heartwood was impossible, but its seed code, the complex masterpiece of gene splicing that gave it life, might still exist in the primary data nexus. He plugged the cable in. The datapad screen flashed red. Access denied. He swore under his breath, running his diagnostic again. Blocked. As if in response to his frustration, a security drone's searchlight swept across the far side of the dome. Owen flattened himself against the massive root, heart pounding, the drone's electric hum a hornet's nest in his ears. He held his breath until the light passed and the sound receded. He was running out of time. He was about to yank the cable when the tree's own light began to change. The faint blue glow in the bark intensified, not randomly, but in a focused, rhythmic sequence. It felt less like a dying ember and more like a deliberate broadcast. On his screen, a new connection opened, not one he initiated, but one offered by the dying tree itself. It was bypassing its own corrupted security protocols, force-feeding him a single, isolated data packet from its core memory. The old tech had been right. It was talking to him. The packet resolved. It wasn't a system log or a genetic sequence. It was a chemical analysis from an automated sensor in the primary root system, time-stamped from the final hours before the shutdown. Owen's breath caught in his throat. The report was stark. It showed traces of a complex metallic particulate in the nutrient solution, a compound with a molecular structure he'd never seen. It wasn't a flaw in the filters or natural contaminant. It was an additive, a poison, engineered to be untraceable after it broke down, designed to mimic cellular decay. Someone hadn't just let the heartwood die, they had murdered it. A new alert chimed on his datapad. Core archive salvage complete. He had it. A corrupted, fragmented but priceless copy of the tree's foundation code, and embedded within it the evidence of a crime, a final message from a dying witness. He yanked the cable, stuffing the datapad into his pack and standing up. This wasn't a monument to a failed dream anymore. It was a crime scene. And the heartwood, with its final desperate act, hadn't just given him proof, it had given him a mission. Clutching the data chip in his pocket, he turned away from the dying giant and walked back toward the shadows of the gray zones. The air still tasted of rust, but now it also tasted of purpose.